Hi guys, so welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create an age calculator in JavaScript. So let's get started. So to follow along, so let me just show you what this one does. So let's assume someone was born in 1998, January, or let's use December. So December 1st. Then you calculate their age. You can see this person is 26 years old. So we are going to create this using JavaScript. And as well as the main lesson here is how to interact with the DOM, how you can manipulate things from the DOM, how you can do all that kind of stuff. So to follow along, we do have this repository here that will be linked in the description. So the first thing we have here is two branches. So we have the initial branch. So the initial branch has the HTML code and CSS, but it doesn't have the JavaScript code. You can see that the JavaScript script is empty. And in case I go to master, so what I did, I just changed the URL. That's the best part of being a developer. You can tweak things without having to navigate using the interface. So you can see now we have the finished code. So what you should do is go to the repository, clone the repository in the master branch, and then switch to the initial branch, or you could clone it as a single branch. But in my case, I'm just going to clone the master branch and then switch to the initial branch. So this is what you're going to build. You can see this person is 26 years old. We can try with someone else. So this person was born in 2007 in July 18, and they are 18 years old. So we are going to create the whole logic. And the reason I have the Miro board open is that I need to explain some of the concepts. So let me go to my terminal. So go to your terminal, and then I can just go back. You can see I have some folders there. Then come copy this link. So this will depend if you are using SSH, you're going to copy the SSH link. But in case you're using the HTTPS, you can copy the HTTPS link. It will still work. The repository is public. So copy these. Let's go back to the terminal. So let me make the terminal bigger so that you can see. And then you just do git clone. So git clone, and then paste that link. So this will clone the whole repository, and for cloning, we need to switch to the initial branch. So we can cd to age calculator, you cd to that folder. You can see in the master branch. So this is the master branch. So we can switch to the initial branch. We don't need to write branch, so we can just switch. So you can see I'm in the initial branch, and then I can open this folder in VS Code. All right. Yes. So, and this is what we can see. So this is the project. Let me make it big. I don't want to update. Right. So let's continue. So we have a HTML file. We have a license. This one doesn't matter. This is the license of the creator. We have the script. We have the styles. So you don't have a lot here. So if you check the HTML code, you can see the HTML. You have a div with a class of card. This is basically the HTML. And then you can see these HTML inputs, all the elements, they have an unique ID. So we said an ID in an element is a unique identifier of that specific element. And we said we have so many identifiers. You can use a class, you can use a tag, but in our scenario, we're going to use the ID. You can see even our button has the ID. And then you can see this div with the ID of resort. It also has a class of resort. So something you'll notice that we have linked to our styles, our CSS. This is our CSS. And then we have linked our JavaScript in the bottom. So this one means that JavaScript will be loaded as soon as all the HTML elements are loaded, such that you don't reference an element that is not yet created in case you added it here on top. All right, and that's it for this. So the CSS, we don't need to touch the CSS. And then this is a script. This is where we will write all our code. And then something else we need to do here. So make sure you have this extension installed. So there's an extension below here. You can see go live extension. So if you come here in the extension and search, let me make this bigger, search something called live server. This one which has 66 million downloads. So if you go to this live server, you install it, you'll see something called go live. So what you do is that you go to the HTML template you want, the HTML file you want to serve, and then you can click go live to serve this HTML in the browser. This is what I'm going to do. Then it will load up the project in the browser. So currently nothing is working because we don't have the JavaScript, but we still have the inputs and we have the IDs already hooked up. So let's continue. So what do we want to achieve? So the first thing, as I always say, you have to identify what am I going to work with. So the first thing, if you go back to the UI, is that you can see we have an input field which is of type date. Since we want to calculate someone's age, so this one is basically date of birth. We could even add a label here. So you can say label for birth date. So the for in the label attaches this label to an input with a given ID such that if you press the label, the input is highlighted. So I can say enter your birth date. So this is just HTML thing. Then you can see if I press on the label, the input field of type date gets highlighted. So what do we want to achieve? A person enters their age, so they enter their age here, and then as soon as they click on calculate my age, we get the age that they entered in the input. So this here is for signifying to us that we are ready to calculate the age. It shows intent. So whenever you add, let me just pick a random. So let's say this person was born in 2020, January 1st. So until this point, we haven't acted on the action of calculating the age. We have not started calculating the person's age. This person is not yet done. So as soon as they click calculate age, this is where we trigger something to calculate the age and show them, right? So what is the logic we are going to use? We need to capture the value that they entered in the input. We need to capture when did they click, not even when, but have they clicked on the button to show the intent of calculation. And then when they click, we grab in the value that is in the input, we work on it, and then we show it below here. That's when you saw this div here that is empty. So if I write something like empty, you can see it's here. So it's essentially empty in the case that we don't have a result. So as soon as we get a result, we calculate their age, we should show them here. As soon as we get an error, we could show them here or give them an alert. All right. So let's get started. So our first thing we need to do, if we go back, we open our JavaScript. The JavaScript is already hooked up to our HTML. So we go to the script. And the very first thing we need is that we need to show the intent. So we need to grab from the HTML document. I don't know whether you can see. I hope you can see clearly. So this is our HTML document, and we don't care about the body. We don't care about the heading unless we need to change the heading. We don't care about the label. We care when someone clicks the calculate button. So what do? We need a reference to the calculate button. It has an ID, so we can grab it from the document using its own ID. How do we do that? We use the document.getElementById. So we can say document. So the document here when we say document, we mean this is a document. the HTML document, the DOM, document object model. All right. And the DOM essentially means how the HTML document elements are transformed into a tree-like structure. So let me just explain that to you. So we have the HTML document. So it always starts. So let me pick this. So this is the HTML document. So this one is like the root or the HTML element. And if we have the root, we start creating tree-like structures. So this is what we call the DOM. And the tree-like structures is consisted of child and siblings, child, siblings, parent, child, sibling. So we do have, let's start with something like the body. Inside the body, we can have a div here. The div has h1, h2. So we are transforming the HTML elements, and then we can have something else. Let's go back to our HTML and see. So let me see. For some reason I cannot open my. So you can see we start with the root HTML element. We have a head and the body. So we have the head is the parent of whatever is inside. The body is the parent of whatever is inside. The div, the ID of card. So if you were to represent this in the DOM, this is what we could be having. So let me just go back and do all this. Undo. I'm just explaining the root, the DOM. So we have the root, which is the HTML root. And then it has the head. We have the body. And the body has a div. It doesn't have two. So I need an eraser. Or I can go. So it doesn't have multiple. It does. It also has a script. But let's focus on the HTML elements. So we have a div here. The div has a heading. And it has other things. So this is what we call the DOM. And this is the DOM is basically a representation of the HTML markup as objects that JavaScript can interact with, and it also gives us methods to interact with these elements. And one of the methods, so the document, we have something called getElementById. So getElementById is a method, and a method is basically a function in an object. So the document represents the whole document. Inside that object, we have helper methods to help us get elements to do all kind of stuff. So we do have the getElementById, and then you can get an element. Which element do you want to get? The button. What is its ID? Its ID is calculate button. So after getting this element, because we're not going to use this element instantly, we need to store it so that we can use it later. So we can say const button is equals to that button. So this button references the button in the DOM. All right. What else do we need to get? We need to get our input. We need to work with the input because later on we need the value in the input. So we come here and create an input, and we still use the document. We have other methods to get elements from the DOM, but let's first focus on the getElementById. So you can say getElementById, our input, check its ID, and grab it. So we have two inputs, or we have two elements, two variables that are storing. One is storing our button, and this button is exactly the button in the DOM. This input is the exact input in the DOM. What else do we need? We need the result because we will insert the result here for the user to see. So we can also grab the result div. So we can say result is equals to, you can call it whatever you want, but let's call it like that. And then it has an ID of result. So this is the ID I'm talking about. And you can see it's a div with the ID of. So just to recap, we have references to the button. We have references to our input, and we have a reference to the result. But we are not actually doing anything. So what do we need to do? We need to add something called an event listener to an element. An event listener basically listens for an event. So when someone clicks, that's an event. Someone is clicking. When someone double clicks, that's an event. Someone is double clicking. When someone drags, that's an event. So we need to listen whenever that particular event occurs. So if I go back, what we do is that let's first get out of, let's make this big. I can just do this. So what we could do here is we call our button and it has a method called add event listener. So we are listening to an event and this method receives two arguments. So the first argument is what type of event do you want to listen, and the next argument is who handles. Yes, we have captured the click event. So what do we do next? So we have so many methods. If you can see, we have blur, we have cancel, change, click, close, all these, but we even have drag, double click, all that. We are capturing the click. Whenever someone clicks on that button, the second argument is a function. It's called a callback function because, or we can call it a handler function, because this function is the one that is called to act on the action of a person clicking the button. So you could create the function inline, or if you are a beginner, you can just create a function outside. You can say function calculate age. So let me just move over this. So, and then instead of writing an inline, we pass a reference to the function so that whenever this action is captured or the event listener is captured, we call this function. So we don't call it here, we pass a reference so that JavaScript is the one that will call it. So let's go back and see how that happens. So if I go back to the browser, whenever someone clicks on this button, the event listener captures that event as a click and then calls this function. So if I can do something like alert, we have a native alert in the window. We can say, hey, you clicked me. So whenever someone clicks on this button, we call the calculate age, and then temporarily we have added an alert. So if I click this, you can see the alert because that is the handler function. But what do we want to achieve? So what we want to achieve from now on is that we need to grab whatever is in the input by the time this person is clicking calculate. When you click calculate, we get whatever is in the input. We compute from that and get their age and show them their age. That's exactly what we are going to do. So let's do that step by step. So the first thing we need to get is the value of the input. So we already have the input reference. So we need the value from the input. So we can say input value is equals to our input dot value. So by doing this, so let me just alert that we can alert input value. I want just to show you what that is. So if we come here and say, let me just pick a day, and then we calculate, you can see we get the input value. The input value is 2025 July 14. 2025 July 14. 2025 July 14. So whenever we calculate, we print the value of that input. But we don't care about the value. Whatever we care about is calculating the age based on the value the user has provided. What if someone clicks on the button when we don't have an input? What do we do? We can validate that and say if not input. Let me just use something that maybe a beginner can understand. So we can say if input value is equals to an empty string, then we can alert the user and tell them, please enter your birth date. And then to prevent this function from continuing, we normally do something called a return, and we return nothing. So let's go back and see. So we currently don't have any value. And then if we try, we prevent the calculation from continuing. So something else you might notice is that in JavaScript, you have something called truthy and false values. So we do have truthy, false values. Let's focus on false values. This is a value that evaluates to false. Let me open my a node environment here. So we can say, so if you add double exclamation mark in front of anything, it transforms it into a boolean. So don't worry about this syntax. So if you add double exclamation marks in front of an element, we get boolean. So if I do that and say TechWithTwin, we get true, because in JavaScript you have true values and false values. So one of the false values is an empty string. We have null, we have undefined. So these are false values. They evaluate to false. So you have empty strings, null, undefined, all that kind of stuff. So technically we could do this. Instead of doing input value is equals to 0, we can check the truthfulness of the input value. So we can say if the input value is not true, so we can say not input value. So this is exactly similar to what we did. Then we can alert the user. So this is just an guard to prevent us from calculating the logic based on something that does not exist. So the next thing we need to do is that we need to get their birth date in form of date, because JavaScript knows how to work with dates. So we can do birth date is equals to a new date. This is just creating a date out of a string, and then we give it the input value. And until this point, we already have a valid input value because we validated it from this step. So this one gives us the birth date in form of a date that we can work with. And the birth date, you can work with it. You can see all these methods. You can get the date, the hours, the milliseconds, all that. So we've transformed the date string, the string from the input, into a date object that we can work with. So the next thing we need to calculate is the age. So we can say let age is equals to. So you also need the date of today. So to get today, we can do const today is equals to new date. So if you do that, we get the date of today. So let me just show you so that you don't wonder what I'm doing. So let's do new date. So 2025 July. So 2025 July at 24. New date dot all right, so you can see the date string. So this is exactly what this evaluates to. So if we get the new date and we convert it into a date string, we can see it's Wednesday, July 23rd. So you can see on top here 2025. So don't wonder what I was doing. So we have the date of today, we have their birth date, but we are converting the input from the input field in the DOM to a date object so that we can be able to do subtraction and addition. So what we can do to get the age, we need to subtract the years. So to get the age, the current year, we can do get full year. So you can see we have so many methods that we can use to work with dates. And then we subtract this from the birth date dot get full year. So just care about the years. All right. And then here we can alert the age. So if we go back, we say this person was born in 2019 December 5th. Then you calculate the age. You can see it is saying 7 years old. But we have an issue. This person was born in 2018 December. So 2019 December, 2020 December, 2021 December, 2022 December, 2023 December, 2024 December, 2025 December. So there will be 7 years. They will be 7 years old when we get to December this year on date 5. So this one is wrong. So what do we do on this point? So we need to go a step further. So let me just go to my mirror board again. So we need to go to a step further. We saw this person was born in. So this person was born in. So we have deck 2018, and right now we are in 2025. We are currently in July. And then we have deck 2025. You also have to consider the date. So it was date 5. So date 5. So this person will be, at this point, they will be 7 years old when it comes to December 2025, date 5. But since we are in July, we are not yet at 7 years old. We are at 6 years old, but we will be 7 years old in. So we do have 5 months to come. So our calculator logic is wrong until this point. I don't know whether you understand that logic. So what we can do is that, let me show you. We need to check the month. So which month are we at? So you can say const month is equals to, today we get the current dates month, and say get month, and then we subtract the birthdays month. I hope you understand. So we said, so the first thing we did is we subtracted the years. Let me take another color here. So we subtracted the years. So 2025 minus 2018 is 7 years. So we got 7 years, but this person is not yet 7 years. So we need to go a step further to the months. We subtract the months. So we are currently at July. So let's see what it gives us. So we can say node again. So we can say new date dot get month. So you can see the dates of a month starts at 0. So we are saying we are currently at month 6, but we are currently at month 7. But the issue is because the months start at 0. So don't worry about that. That won't provide us with any issue. So it is still the same thing. So let me just go back. So go back. So we are currently in month 6, but remember the months start at 0. All right. But there's no issue. So we do 6 minus, we subtract the months. So December should technically be 12, but since it starts at 0, we go at till 11. So we can say 6 minus 11, you get -5. So what does this tell us? This tells us this person has not yet reached the current age. So we can subtract 1 from the age. All right. And what if this gives us, so what if this gives us a positive? So this person has reached 7 years. So what if this person was born in July and we are currently at December? So we could do 11 minus 6. We get a positive. If you get a positive, you know this person is past the current age, and then we don't need to subtract anything. So let's continue. And what if we get 0? So what if we get 0 here? What if we are currently at the same month? What do we do? So this means this person was born in the current month they are in. So we need to go a step further and check the date and see whether they have gotten the current time. So we could do new date. Let me just show you. Okay, so I could do, so if we say new date, so if you say new date, it gives us the current date. And then we get the get date. So this one gives us the day, 23rd. So let's go back to our logic. So here, what do? We create an if statement and say, if, let's start an if we say if the month is less than 0. So if it's negative, that means, let's go back. I don't want you to, so if we said, I think we have to redo this. It's quite messy. So this person, this is 2018, December 5. Then we are currently in 2025. 2025, July 23. So the first thing we subtracted the years, we got 7. The next thing we need is now we go back to the month and see whether the month. So we see whether the month is matching. So we said July is 7 minus 1, because indexing start at 0, we get 6. And then this one is 12 minus 1, we get 11. So we can do 6 minus 11. We get, so we get, what do we get? So this one is 6, 4, 5, we get 5. Negative 5. What does this tell us? So this one tells us that this person is yet to get to that age. So we don't need to go back and look for the dates, because this person has 5 months left to get to the current age we got. So we can go ahead and subtract 1 and get their age is equals to 6. Let's go to scenario number 2. Let's assume this person was born in 2018, July. 2018, July, 29. And then we are currently in 2025, July 23. So we do the first subtraction, we get 7 years. We go and check whether the age, the months are the same. So if I subtract the months, we get 0. All right. So that means they were born in the current month. So we go to a step further and check their birth day. So if we do 23 minus 29, what do we get? 23 minus 21, we get negative 6. So this person has 6 days to reach their birthday. So we subtract 1 again and we get 6 years. They have not yet reached. Scenario number 5 or number 3. So we have 2018, July 23. Now July 20, 2025. Then we have July 23. So we do the subtraction for the years, we get 7. This one is 0, so we cannot determine whether they are still at the age. Then we go to the month. So 23 minus 20 is positive. That means this person is 6 days older. Is 7 years old plus 6 days. 7 years plus 6 days old. And I hope you can understand the logic. And then we look for the final. Yeah, that's the final one, whereby we check the ages. All right. So let's go back to our logic. So we say, so this is the month. So if the month is less than 0, what does that tell us? This tells us that this person has not yet reached the age we got by subtracting the years. So we need to subtract 1. So we can do age is equals to age minus 1. But we have another scenario I've not talked up. So we could do, or we open another another parenthesis and say, if the month is equals to 0. So this means that this person was born during the current month. So this is a person who was born in this way. So this is the months correspond to 0. That means this person was born in the current month. All right. So if this person was born in the current month and today dot get date, we saw the get date gives us the date is less than the birth date dot get date. So I hope you understand. So if the month is the current month, this is what it says. If the current month is this month and today is larger than their birth date, that means this person is yet to reach the birth date. So that means the birth date is greater than today. So if today is 23, their birthday is in 26. This person is not yet to reach the age we got here. So we need to subtract that. So we do, if this one is true, that means we are in current month and today dot get full date. So that means we have not yet reached to the birth date because the birthday is greater than the current day. So this is the day. Then we are in the current month and today is lesser than the birthday. We have not yet reached to the birthday. We need to subtract 1 from the age because they have not yet reached age. Otherwise, we don't need to subtract anything because this person has already. If the month is positive, that means if the month is greater than 0, that means this person is either the current age plus those months. So this is a person who was born, whose birthday was last month, because they don't reach because the month is the current. So the month is, so we do today minus the birthday's month, we get a positive value. That means this one becomes, what does this one become? False. Because now m will be greater than 0. And then we forfeit all this check and we continue. So as soon as we get to this, we already know their age. So we can do result. What is result? The result is this one. And the result is whatever is here. We need to insert something in the middle. And this thing we are inserting is the message to the user. So if you go back, we can say result. We have another property we can add, which is called the text content. Then we write it as, it's a string, UR, and then we can do plus age, and then we can do, so here we need to do another check. We need to check if age is not equals to 1, but we can do that. So we can do, we can add here. Now let's do it simpler. So we can just do age plus age. So if you go back, we enter the birthday as 2018. 2018. December. And then we can get the age of 6 because 2018 December, this person will become 7 years in December. Yeah, and that's it, guys. That's how you work with JavaScript. So it's a bit hectic here, but once you get a hold of it, you first check there. If the month equals if the month is 0, that means we are in this person was born, let's say we are in July, this person was born in July. That's why the month difference is 0. We need to go a step further to the date and we check, yes, you are born in July, but which date were you born in? Because today we are in 23rd, and let's assume your birthday was in 20th. So is today less than the birthday? No. So if it's lesser, this person has not yet reached. If it's greater, if today is greater, this person already reached their birthday and we don't need to subtract 1 from their age. And that's it.